With pretty much every passing day, there's more and more research coming out about how genetic SNPs can play a role in your life. And with that, more and more companies are jumping on the bandwagon to develop products to help people with this. There's some debate about which companies are better than others. There's some really cool glossy reports out there, but they're also pretty expensive. The idea of learning about your unique genetic profile is very appealing to a lot of people. For those that don't know, genetic SNP stands for single nucleotide polymorphism. When you run a 23andMe or a similar test, you can test through the saliva for 23andMe or blood, you're getting a window into your genetic SNPs. 23andMe, for example, tests several 100,000 SNPs. So it can give you a lot of data. The problem is we don't necessarily have research about all of those SNPs. The information you can get from your genetic SNPs can range from how well you will detox from certain medications. There's a lot of research in that field because drug companies, they definitely can profit from that research. Also, there's so much information from a nutritional perspective, indicating whether or not, for example, someone would need to check in on their vitamin D and their vitamin A levels, their B12 and folate levels. There's so much information there about perhaps whether or not you'll be able to metabolize macronutrients like protein and fat and carbohydrates, how well you would do, if you would do better with a high-fat diet or a low-fat diet, if you're somebody who can fast more easily than someone else. There's information about exercise, your potential for exercise injury. You can also see if you have a tendency to be more of an endurance athlete or a sprint type athlete. So there's a lot of information there from a broad spectrum, whether you're dealing with a health issue, you want to lose weight, you want to optimize your fitness or your general health. There's so much out there with the genetic SNP. If you haven't done genetic SNP testing yet, it might be something worth considering. Just don't do it thinking that it's going to solve all of your problems. Let's be realistic about it. The research is still somewhat in its infancy. And you can use that data to make changes in an intelligent way, but just do it understanding that just because you have a certain SNP doesn't mean that you're going to have that particular problem that it's indicating. So there's trial and error, and there's really observing your body, which is why body tracking and genetic SNP testing go so well together, because you can make these changes based on your genetic SNPs, and then you can track and see what's going on to verify whether or not it's actually an issue for you. There are actually a lot of options out there for genetic SNP testing. A lot of people know about 23andMe, and that's a saliva test. You send the data in, and they're going to give you a limited amount of information about your health, and of course a lot of information about your ancestry, which is cool. But really you have to take that raw data that they give you beyond the basic testing for health stuff. For example, if you have a genetic disease that you probably would know that you have, or to tell you if you sweat a lot or your eyes tend to be dry or whatever it is. It's not super helpful information, but beyond that, you can take your raw data and you can upload it into another program or software. And there are a lot of options out there. I like Strategene by Seeking Health. It's very affordable. It tests SNPs that have been well researched. And from there, you get the genetic report from Seeking Health, but then you kind of have to be able to read that report, which is another step that sometimes is challenging for people. That's where someone like me comes in. I would be able to help you read that genetic report. So the step one, you do the genetic testing, then you take the data, put it into Strategene, and then you might or might not need some help interpreting it. I also use a software that I really like called Tree of Life Methyl-Genetic Nutrition Analysis, and that is a much more extensive report. So that's available. It's more costly, but it gives a lot more information than Strategene. I use both of those tests, those softwares, and I think they're both wonderful. There is a ton of other stuff out there, and I will be blogging and putting more videos up about these different software companies out there, because they're really not all created the same, and also there's pricing and how much information you actually get to consider. For example, Genetic Genie is another one. They don't really give a whole lot of information, but it's very affordable, if not free. So you have to weigh out all these different options. There are other companies where you bypass 23andMe and you send them your saliva and they do the genetic testing and the report. And those companies, Nutrigenomics is one of them, they charge more, but of course you're getting the genetic testing combined in with the cost of the report. So that's also an option for some people. So there's a lot out there, and if you want individualized help with this, you can contact me. But I also have a lot of information on my website about all different types of genetic tests, and just to help you find out what's going to work for you.